I'm joined by a very special guest. Joining me now is Adar Poonawalla, the CEO of the Serum Institute of India, the world and India's largest vaccine maker in terms of number of doses. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Poonawalla. The big question, of course, is what's coming out of Oxford at the moment. Reports there suggesting, Adar, that at the moment you've got a situation where Oxford, AstraZeneca are claiming that they have managed to get an element of high element, initial reports are saying, of immune responses from a number of patients, including those in the vulnerable age group, especially the elderly. Do you believe that this fundamentally now pushes forward your entire project for an early development of a coronavirus vaccine, considering you are very much part of this global collaboration?
Absolutely. Nice to talk to you firstly. And, you know, the trial in the UK is almost complete. They're talking about an emergency licensure there because there's some reports that hospitals there will receive the vaccine early because it is producing a good response. The T cell response, which is your CD4, CD8 cells, which is what you need for your long-term immunity, in addition to your antibodies, you know, which are there anyway, the data is very good. And as a result, if the UK goes into an emergency licensure, it'll be up to the government of India to then decide and take a call after analyzing that data, whether we follow suit in about a month as well. Having said that, our own trial in India will be completed by January. So, you know, now it'll be up to the UK health authorities and the Indian health authorities to take a decision on how safe and efficacious this vaccine is. And as you know, we've been stockpiling a lot of this product, so we'll have substantial volumes by December, January, if they decide to license the vaccine by then to distribute to the country.
You know, you're giving us a very important news point there, Mr. Poonawalla. You're telling me that if, as the media reports coming in from London suggest, that the UK hospital trust could now get doses of the Oxford vaccine, possibly early November, certainly by Christmas, for emergency responses to coronavirus, a similar availability could be made to Indian hospitals by the end of the year. Am I correct?
That will, yes, that will depend entirely on the Drug Controller of India after he analyzes the data coming in from the UK and in India that we've got so far. And if he thinks it makes sense and the health ministry officials and other ministries at the moment who are all coordinated in this joint effort decide that at risk, you know, for a limited amount of people, whether it's the healthcare workers and the elderly, the vulnerable populations, we give a limited amount of vaccine to them, you know, come December, January, that is possible. But again, after we look at that data, which will be available in about 2 weeks' time from now from the UK.
Interesting again what you're saying, because it appears therefore that we are now looking at a two-stage process, and feel free to correct me, where the vaccine initially gets distributed for emergency care and high-risk groups, particularly for healthcare workers, and those who are more vulnerable as early as January, and then possibly by the middle of next year for mass distribution. Am I correct? Because the talk in UK is that the vaccine could be available for mass distribution only in the middle of next year. Are we looking therefore at a two-stage process now?
Absolutely. So you've articulated that perfectly. You know, so we get a limited amount of supply out to the most vulnerable early on, and then we give the rest of the population once all the trials are fully completed. I think that would make the most logical sense. That's the way, you know, everyone's going to go.
You know, Mr. Poonawalla, the UK clinical trials are in an advanced stage 3 at the moment. I'd like to know, or our viewers would like to know, where are we? Where is India? You're also conducting trials simultaneously in India. Do you have a time frame by when the trials in India will also get completed?
January, you know, because we've already given the first dose to most of the patients in the trial, which is more than 1,000 so far already. The total trial is for 1,600 patients in India. So once we give the second dose and then analyze their samples and monitor them for safety and efficacy, that's why I say January to be absolutely safe for India. But then again, we'll have to wait till all the data comes in from the UK to collate that together. And then, the Indian drug controller will have enough data to then decide which way to go and when to license the product.
So that's an important news point. Oxford trials in India for the Oxford vaccine should be done by January. And you've also told us that you are simultaneously even now stockpiling millions of doses of the vaccine. The big question then comes, how is it going to get distributed, Mr. Poonawalla? Do you already have a plan in mind for the rollout of the distribution?
So initially, nobody knew how that should happen. We also had a feeling that we should give it to the most vulnerable to begin with, the elderly, the healthcare workers, and other vulnerable pockets. And, then now we've heard that the center, the health ministry, will decide, and it's not the states individually or any company. And we respect that decision. I think it's great that there'll be one nodal point that will decide how to do it in a fair and ethical manner, because they have all the data of where all the elderly or the healthcare workers would be, most vulnerable people would be, and they should rightly so distribute it as they deem fit. So we're going to just follow, their lead and do as they ask us to with the initial supply. And maybe in a year or so, then once there's enough supply, we go into the private market and other areas and, sell it the way we want to as a commercial product.
Okay, so that's as far as distribution, where you're saying the government will sort of, in a sense, put out the detailed plan, but there is also the question of costs. We've just seen an announcement during the Bihar election campaign of a free vaccine for Bihar. Other states such as Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu are also talking now of a free vaccine being distributed. Is that on the table? Can you tell us from a commercial perspective how much will the vaccine cost? And will there be, importantly, multiple doses of the vaccine that anyone will have to take, not just one dose?
So because we're talking at the moment at the highest levels at different ministries in the government, I won't comment exactly on the price, but it's going to be a very affordable price for a few hundred rupees. And, again, for the bulk of it, the government will probably procure the vaccine and give it free to, the people who can't afford to take it and have it. But we'll also be selling a part of that quantity, as I said, after maybe 6 months or a year, to the private market where people will pay for it. And, I don't think a few hundred rupees, considering tests today are costing more than 1,400 rupees, is a very high price. So we're going to price it very affordable so that, the government can also buy enough of it given the size of our population and the fact that it's going to be a 2-dose vaccine. So we're going to price it the lowest in India, and then in other markets abroad, in other countries, we'll probably price it at a higher price.
So effectively, and this is again important, what you are saying is that in the first year, the government is likely to subsidize the vaccine if they have to give it free, because presumably that's the only way that they can fulfill their promise of a free vaccine. The commercial angle will come after year one.
Well, and they've made it very clear in a lot of public responses that they have enough funds and the capability and the will to do that. So that's very good news. And, we should all rest assured that the government is fully prepared, geared up, both financially and logistically to handle that, which is now very clear. And they've made it very publicly clear with different statements coming out from the government of India. And we're very grateful for that.
The other question that I raised a short while ago, Mr. Poonawalla, and you might want to respond about doses. There is a belief that you will need multiple doses, and what is the efficacy of those doses? Because will it only last for a year and then you go for a second dose? Efficacy and safety, Mr. Poonawalla, has remained real worries when it comes to a vaccine.
So these early candidates, it's very clear, like Novavax, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna, all of these vaccines will probably need 2 doses. The Oxford AstraZeneca candidate will need 2 doses. Traditionally, most vaccines are 2 to 3 doses anyway. Even if you look at pneumonia, HPV, measles, pentavalent, all these vaccines, you need a booster dose to give you that higher level, long-lasting protection, so that you don't have to keep coming back and taking one every year. But having said that, it's too soon to comment on the COVID vaccines, where we don't know how long, even with a second dose, you'll get that protection. Only time will tell after 1 or 2 years pass and we see whether people are actually protected against the disease. And then we'll know how long it's protecting for and when you need another jab. And perhaps, the next generation of vaccines coming about, including ours, in about a year's time or year and a half, the live attenuated vaccines, the whole unit vaccines, which will give definitely a better, more powerful response and a long-lasting response. But we can't wait for that. We have to take and vaccinate our populations in the interim with whatever is available and safe, at least to give you that 50-60% protection. And let me tell you, when we say 50-60% protection, even the rest of the people who may not get such a great response from the vaccine, the severity of the disease for them will be far less. So their chances of death and mortality will be substantially reduced. And that's why even a vaccine which is 50-60% effective is going to be licensed all over the world.
I take that point, but the concern, Mr. Poonawalla, remains safety, because there are so many vaccines out there in various stages, and all the companies are fast forwarding a process that normally takes several years. Is that a concern that because of this fierce competition, the entire process could well be pushed too hard at times, including the Oxford vaccine?
Well, that's a very good point. With perhaps the other candidates, that is a very valid point. But with the Oxford AstraZeneca one, and that's one of the reasons why we backed it early on, is that the platform has been tested for safety and efficacy many, many times in thousands of people for many years, including the Ebola vaccine and other things. So the chimp adenovirus is a very time-tested, safe and efficacious platform. And that's why I, at least for this candidate to begin with, have no concerns on safety. But of course, no one can be 100% sure. So I never want to make a definitive statement. But on the face of it, if you look at something that's been time tested in a few years, over a few years, without having any severe side effects, one can assume that it's fairly safe. So that's why, I'm fairly confident on that. Of course, no one can be 100% in anything, but that's where we are.
You've given us a lot of positive news in the last few minutes. You're hopeful that the trials will get completed by January. You're hopeful possibly that by January the vaccine could be available in emergency doses for vulnerable groups, and possibly by the middle of next year made available to a large number of people. It appears almost that if we speak a year from now, we'll be in a much better place, therefore, in taking on corona. Did you think at any stage, even a few months ago at the start of the year, that we would be in such a position to talk so positively about a vaccine? Am I correct, given the history in the past where vaccines have taken years for them to finally reach markets?
Absolutely. Come in March, April, if you rewind to that period, I didn't even dream that we would have a vaccine ready so quickly, whether it's ours or anyone else's. But the way the regulation has been fast-tracked, of course, without cutting corners, we've just got rid of a lot of the bureaucracy and gotten on with the actual science and the work, and that's what's cut short the time. Having said that, I didn't have access to this data and these results which are coming in from the UK even about a month ago. So that's why I'm very positive now, very confident now, especially also after having vaccinated more than 1,000 Indians in India with this vaccine. So that's why, of course, I'm very hopeful, very confident now. It's just a matter of 2 or 3 months till we just complete these formalities. And as you rightly said, come this time next year, where at least our country is going to be in a very good position in terms of getting access to the vaccines and on our way to recovery.
Adar Poonawalla, thank you so much for joining me here and giving us a sense of what lies ahead in this race for a vaccine and where the Oxford AstraZeneca Serum Institute vaccine stands. Thanks very much.
Now, all Pleasure of this, talking to you.
Thank you.